This boss fight in Pokemon Platinum's Battle Factory is bugged, making it way harder than it's supposed to be. The bug lets Thorton, the boss of the factory, have legendary Pokemon way earlier than intended. I mean, I know that we all think the Battle Frontier is rigged, but going from these Pokemon to these Pokemon seems like a little too much. As it turns out though, it's only bugged in some of the game's releases, and no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find any definitive information on which ones were fixed and which weren't. So I tested it on every single version of Pokemon Platinum, getting to 20 wins in the Battle Factory, just so I could get to the Thorton fight in each one. I found that most foreign language releases are actually optimal, but only in one specific mode. Otherwise, the English and Japanese versions are superior? It's very confusing, so in this video I'll break down this bizarre undocumented version difference. Let's get into it. I've talked about the Battle Factory in previous videos, but instead of showing clips of me crashing out over it, we need to explain how it actually works. The Battle Factory is a post-game challenge that involves renting a team of Pokemon and battling trainer after trainer. After defeating a trainer, you can take one of their Pokemon to replace one of your own. Every 7 battles, your team resets and you can begin again. The 21st battle is always with Thorton, and if you defeat him here, you get a silver print to flex in your VS recorder. After that, if you survive an additional 28 battles of BS RNG, you fight a harder version of Thorton to potentially win a gold print. There are also 2 different modes for the factory, level 50 and open level. Level 50 starts you with weaker Pokemon and slowly builds up the strong ones, and levels are locked to 50. However, in open level, you skip the weaker Pokemon and go straight to level 100 high tier Pokemon. So for example, in level 50 you might be offered a Chimchar, while in open level you'd be offered an Infernape. Ultimately, there are 2 different conditions for Thorton battles, Open versus level 50, and Silver versus Gold. The specific Pokemon you can rent are random, but their builds are predefined. Each one has 4 possible sets with fixed natures, movesets, held items, and more. The available sets depend on how deep your current run is. While later rounds can feature random sets, the sets for Thorton are always the same, depending on which game you're playing. Here are Thorton's possible sets for Pokemon Platinum, and here they are for HeartGold, SoulSilver. In HGSS, the open level Silver Thorton battle is easier, because legendary Pokemon can't appear. Conversely, the level 50 Gold Thorton battle becomes harder, because legendaries can appear, and the other Pokemon sets are generally better. This makes sense, right? The harder battles should feature stronger Pokemon. This all works as intended in HGSS. But it seems that in Platinum, they made a couple oopsies. These 2 Platinum Thorton fights are inverted as a result of a mistake in the code, and Game Freak corrected this mistake in HGSS. As it turns out though, not every version of Pokemon Platinum has these bug Thorton fights. I searched far and wide, but only really found one source of information on which versions were bugged. Altissimo 1's website confirmed that the Italian version had the fix and worked like HGSS, but did any other versions fix it? Well, let's take a look at all of the Platinum releases. First was the Japanese release back in 2008, followed by 2 different North American releases. Revision 0, which had a GTS bug, and Revision 1, which fixed it. Then, in May 2009, both the Australian and 5 different European versions were released. One for English, Italian, French, Spanish, and German. Lastly, South Korea got their own release in July 2009. Nobody I talked to knew exactly which releases were fixed and which weren't. So I had to test it by getting to the open level Silver Print Thorton fight on all 10 releases of Pokemon Platinum. If this Thorton fight was fixed, it would mean that the level 50 Gold Print Thorton battle was also fixed. This was a very tedious and annoying process, so please consider subscribing to make me feel better for suffering through this. Getting to the Silver Print battle on open level is frustrating. The enemy AI is basically random and it's super easy to lose to dumb things. Fortunately, I had already tested the NA releases on my Twitch stream, which you should totally follow by the way. So I only had to really test 8 more versions. Okay, so I get to Thorton on all 10 versions and confirm which type of Thorton I'm fighting against to see if it's the stupid one with legendaries or the kind and gentle HGSS one. The obvious way to check is to just see if he has any legendary Pokemon or not. But because we're dealing with randomness, even if he can have legendaries, that doesn't mean he will. The proper way to check is to see what moves he uses and compare them to the set data. If Thorton is using a set 1 Pokemon, it's the fixed, easier Thorton battle. If it's a set 4 Pokemon, it's the glitched, harder battle. For example, in this footage from Italian Platinum, Thorton's Infernape uses Fake Out. Looking at the set data, we see that set 1 Infernape has Fake Out and set 4 does not. Therefore, we know that this is the fixed Thorton battle and that he can't have legendary Pokemon. The tricky part is that I don't speak any language other than English, so I couldn't instantly determine which set the Pokemon was using. Sometimes the translations are the same, like surf being surf in French, but I don't speak German, so I don't know what Donnerschlag means. My solution was to do what Pokemon speedrunners would call their worst nightmare. I had to turn on battle animations. This let me recognize what the move was without needing to learn 6 other languages, at the cost of slowing things down. After all of that, I determined that these are the versions of Pokemon Platinum that have the bugged Thorton fights, and these are the versions that fix them. Essentially, every non-English language release besides the original Japanese release has fixed Thorton battles. What's interesting here is that the non-English European releases came out the same time as the English European release, and only 1 week after the Australian release. Why were these 2 English releases not fixed? I doubt we'll ever get a definitive answer, but the most likely scenario is that Game Freak completed these English versions before the bug got fixed. After all, the Australian release is basically the same as the NA release, and the English European release is the same outside of the removal of slot machines. These versions required very little localization effort compared to the translations required for the different language releases, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were finished significantly earlier. The English and Japanese releases also feature some bugs that were fixed in other versions. As a result, the later foreign language releases are effectively the definitive versions of Pokemon Platinum, with the least amount of bugs. I'll add a section to my website, sinjoruins.com, that documents all of them once I finish testing. To summarize, every English and Japanese release of Pokemon Platinum has bugged Thorton battles in the Battle Factory. In these versions, the open-level silver print battle is harder than it should be, with Thorton sometimes having legendary Pokemon. And the level 50 gold print battle is easier than it should be, with no legendary Pokemon. In every other release, including HCSS, the bugged battles are fixed. So that means if you're attempting the Battle Factory and you want to make level 50 easier, you should play in English or Japanese. If you want to make open level easier, you should play the French, Italian, Spanish, German, or Korean version, and hopefully you can speak one of these languages. You can also just play on HeartGold or SoulSilver for the same effect. The unfortunate part is that these foreign language copies are not cheap. While some versions of Pokemon Platinum are easy to obtain, the later foreign language releases are harder to find and more expensive. Korean Pokemon Platinum, for example, regularly hits $200 on eBay. Definitely not worth it to make one optional fight easier. Let me know in the comments if you're thinking of buying any of these definitive foreign language copies after learning about this. Or if you were unknowingly punished by this glitch and lost to some legendary Pokemon in the Battle Factory, as I have many times. Big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you would also like to support my research and archiving efforts, you can check me out at patreon.com/etchy. Special shoutouts to Froyo, Mithros Taken, Veroda, Fuzzy Hugs, Pastel Punk, Birder, PSF, and Askenhawk for your support. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.